as a struggle for the poor and the oppressed. We have to be very careful of this. Learn from your history. Because one of the ways that you will be able to fight more effectively against this corrupt system is by knowing your history. By not knowing your history, you're condemned to repeat some of the same mistakes that were made in the past. And so many of us had to come to a realization. Do we want to take our struggle to a higher level? We were challenged. Imam Jamil, formerly H. Rap Brown, challenged us. Other brothers and sisters who were in the movement in the 60s, and they learned from the 60s and the movement of the 70s, challenged us that we have to take our struggle to a higher level. Take it to a higher level. And that made us soul search. It made us re-examine ourselves. We didn't want to be the type of people who just talked a good game, but didn't practice it. We didn't want to seem like we were hypocritical. And so now we were being challenged because we were told and we were encouraged not to make the same mistakes that were made in the 60s and early 70s. We were challenged. Get married. We were challenged because you can't be in a movement and be a playboy too. Because the women will get dogged, the organizations will be destroyed. We were challenged. Take your struggle to a higher level. Why do you need drugs? We were challenged. Why are they important to you? Why do you have to have it? What's the purpose that you have to have it for? We were challenged. What is the role of the drugs and y'all being into drugs? How is that helpful for you in the movement? We were challenged to examine ourselves, to re-examine ourselves. Are you going to take your struggle to a higher level? Or are you going to be condemned to repeat, to make some of the same mistakes that they made in the 1960s and early 70s? We're not trying to put them down, those in that period of time. But what we're trying to say is that, because they did a lot of good. And in the 60s and early 70s, you had some young brothers and sisters like in their late teens and early 20s who was doing some major stuff, major stuff. There's a book out called The Assassination of Fred Hampton, a brother who was 21 years old out of Chicago, who was so talented that they assassinated him. The FBI had him assassinated using the Chicago police. All of that is common knowledge now. That he was drugged. Fred Hampton was drugged by the leader of his security, who was a snitch and an agent. And when the Chicago police moved in on Fred Hampton, he was unconscious because he was drugged while he was at dinner. And when they tried to wake him up, he wouldn't wake up. And they found out in the autopsy that he had a sectobarbital in his system. He was asleep. He was 21 years old, a talented brother, an effective brother. So we're not trying to take anything away from that generation. But what we're trying to say is that we can't repeat the same mistakes. We can't repeat it. Those of you, and there'll be a few who will answer the call. There'll be a few. Those of you who want to go to a higher stage of struggle, we have to go to a higher stage. Don't settle for a lower stage. Go for a higher stage. The role that drugs play. Why is it important for us to take drugs? Why is it important for drugs to be in our life? Are we responding to a system? Are we responding to a culture that is telling us that it's okay? And instead of challenging that culture, not in adopting a drug that the culture says you're not allowed to adopt, but challenge that culture in a way to say, no, I don't want any type of drugs. I don't want your corruption. I don't want it. Then you take your struggle to a higher level. That's what it's time for. Because in this next go round, it could be more intense than the 1960s. Why? Because the economy is so bad. People are under so much pressure. And so you're seeing people like get in airplanes and fly airplanes into IRS buildings. The American people are really upset. It's not just the people of color. The American people in general are really upset because many of them bought into the American dream. They bought into the whole American culture, and they're going through these problems, and they don't understand why they're going through these problems. I bought into the system. I bought into it lock, stock, and barrel. Why am I losing my home? Why am I losing my job? I bought into it. I believed in it. What's going on? And now what is happening is that many of those Americans are being redirected. They're not being told. They're being misled. They're not being told that it is the corrupt rich that have done this to you. It is the corrupt rich who have done this. and they want more and more. And that's not what they're being told. They're being told to blame the minorities. They're being told to blame these Muslimics that are in the country. They're being told to blame the poor. They're being told to blame anyone else, but not the real perpetrators of what's going on, the corrupt rich. But the American people are going through it. The American people are feeling it. Y'all are about the only ones left to deal, because just about everyone else has sold out. You can't depend on the media. You can't depend on most of the professors. You definitely can't depend on the politicians. Just about everyone has sold out, y'all. They're going with money. They're going with money. And so there's a reluctance for many people to speak out now, because they want to live a certain lifestyle. They want to live large. They want to live well. And look at the consequences. If you become a whistleblower, look at the consequences. They actually punish the whistleblowers more than they punish the perpetrators. The whistleblowers, the people who tell, the good snitches, the ones who see all this corruption taking place and this illegal activity taking place, and they tell, they are persecuted more than the people who actually commit the crime. So we're living in an atmosphere in which the people are being taught, shut up, keep your mouth shut. Do not offer any type of alternative understanding. Do not offer any alternative way of thinking. You go with the party line. You go with the status quo. Y'all are about the only ones left. You youth, the high school, college age, you're about the only ones left. You have to play your role. Each generation must find their historical mission and either fulfill it or betray it. But they want to make sure that you become distracted too. Distracted with material things, and distracted, of course, with drugs. And so now, be careful, be careful, be careful. Because they will try to give you a way of struggle, and they'll try to give you a way of struggling that's within their own ground rules. And once you struggle within their own ground rules, what did Malcolm say? Malcolm say that's insane. Don't struggle within the ground rules that your enemy has laid down. We say to them, no, you keep your drugs. You keep them. You keep them. We'll get quote unquote high in another way. We'll go work out. We'll get a runner's high. You know what I'm saying? We'll get it in another way. We'll hang out with those who we love. You know what I'm saying? We'll get it in another way. You know what I'm saying? But we do not want your drugs. And so, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, kind of keep that in mind, really, really. Think about that. We have to challenge you like we were challenged. We have to challenge you like we were challenged, right? Because many of us were headed in that same direction, We sitting around listening to Malcolm X speeches while we getting high, and saw no contradiction with that, right? Gee, Malcolm was deep, man. Yeah, pass the joint. Go, yeah, Malcolm, man. Malcolm was bringing it. That type of thing. Fake revolutionaries. We didn't think we were fake revolutionaries then. We thought we was all that, right? But then again, we were challenged. We were challenged. Malcolm didn't get high. Do you follow Malcolm, or are you just talking about it? Do you follow Malcolm, or is it just something that is fashionable? You got a Malcolm shirt? Got Malcolm shoes? Malcolm potato chips? You got Malcolm hat? You know what I'm saying? I mean, is this just a thing where you just talk about Malcolm, but you don't know anything about what Malcolm taught? Don't know anything about his lifestyle? What is this about? And we had to really analyze ourselves. So we ask you, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, to really analyze. We need you in the movement. The people need you in the struggle. Because young people are not afraid. Because young people have a desire to take something that's actual and to make it ideal. Because young people are daring. Young people are not fearful. Young people are hopeful. Young people have an energy. Young people are more inclined to be able to go with ideals as opposed to just something that's just material. You have all the characteristics that are needed to wage this next level of struggle. Be very careful on what they will use to try to distract you, because the same way that they'll try to distract you is the same way that they have distracted young people all throughout history. Thank you very much. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so inshallah we have like a little bit over 10 minutes for Q&A. Sorry for the limited time. But if you have a question, just raise your hand. And we tried to have a podium out here, but there were some problems with scheduling. So just stand up and be